Hello.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
pretty good. Just trying to get the lighting right here.
Yeah, me too. Actually got a new system I'm trying out. So you're my first uh, interview with this new setup. I'm trying the Apple product for the first time. So what do you
Welcome
use?
to the
What
dark
do you
side.
do? You use PC or a Mac or Mac?
Oh, I've been a Mac guy for about 2010.
Dang, so you know
Since
all
about
about it.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the feel for this. So,
I got you.
but yeah, I saw your work. I can't remember who it was, how I found it first, but I've seen it for some time now, and
Hmm.
I had tried to reach out, but at the time I don't think you had your website up or you didn't have a contact or it was something different, right? You just is that
Oh, when was it?
um, it's hard to it's been about it was when you did that speech with the Tea Party people. Remember that?
Oh, that was yeah. I don't know why it was up. I don't know what the problem
Yeah,
was, but yeah. But you got me now. That's what's good.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I write for Daily Caller and Town Hall and Foundation for Economic Education. Those tend to be, conservative or libertarian websites, but I really don't fit in any category. I go wherever someone will give me a chance to get my message out there.
That's what's important.
Yeah, and it sounds like to me you kind of are, breaking boundaries and expectations wherever you go, kind of doing your own thing and not being confined to the old left versus right stuff, which is why I wanted to reach out to you.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
So you are the president of the Greater New York chapter of Black Lives Matter. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed.
And how long have you been in this position?
Well, we founded it back in I believe it was 2016, summer of 2016. It was in the wake of the deaths of Alton Sterling, Delron Smalls, and Alton Sterling, Delron, and Philando Castile.
Okay.
Actually, we are Black Lives Matter Greater New York. We are one of the 400 organizations that march under the Black Lives Matter banner
Okay.
that aren't part of the global network. The global network has 38 chapters.
And you are part of it, or you're not?
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're,
And why is that? Is it
we've met and had discussions. We are part. We come from the same set of core values. It's just we do things a little bit differently. But they are doing wonderful work over there. We just move in a bit of a different direction.
mm-hmm. So just kind of like a tactical difference, or just a style, or
Just style, I guess.
yeah.
Style, tactics. Yeah, we are our own entity. We're headed up by young women and men who come from various backgrounds, right? We have people who sit on who graduated from Ivy League universities. Our director of strategy studied astrophysics at Princeton.
Okay.
We have people with two or three master's degrees, and the person with the second most power, I guess you'd say, in the organization is a 17-year-old black woman
Okay.
who's going to Hampton University on scholarship. She also received the Princeton Prize on Race Relations recently.
Okay.
We just, I couldn't, I really couldn't outline every set of differences we have because we
Yeah.
are more alike than not, but
Yeah.
we're a different entity.
Okay. So now your group, um, what is your primary, mission, and what is your primary activity on a day-to-day basis as the president of this group?
Uh, I work to bring people together to end racism.
Okay.
Uh, at its core, that's what we're doing, right? And how we're challenging people who have love in their hearts to turn that love into action
Mm-hmm.
so that they can go out there and take a stand when they need to, call out injustice when they see it, and just be absolutely strong and absolutely what's the word that I'm looking for? Immovable, right? If you care about humanity, if you love your brothers and sisters, then you have to stand for justice. You cannot let your party lines divide you. You cannot let your backgrounds or your socioeconomic status uh, derail you. You have to stay the course, and you have to stay true. If you call yourself a Christian, and you pledge to love all others like Jesus did, then you must do that, right? And these are things you need to do. So my day to day would look like meetings, right? Coalition building, taking phone calls, putting out fires. Those phone calls would come from victims of police brutality, victims of injustice, and sometimes people who just need help or guidance in their situations.
Hmm. What is 90? I mean, what's the majority of the reasons why people get into a situation where there's brutality or injustice in the justice system? Is there a common thing you see that has surprised you or met your expectations when you got into this?
Just give me a second. Let me reflect on that. What I see usually is poorer people, right, who don't really have a knowledge of the law and how to assert their rights. They have their rights kind of exploited and taken advantage of by predatory police. Or are all police predators? No. But there's an underlying theme, and this is there is this support of police in America that is wholehearted and 100%. And you can't trust anyone 100% of the time. Not a pastor, not a politician. You can't even support your family 100% of the time. However, when police do things, they're always given the benefit of the doubt, which allows injustice to occur repeatedly, brutal acts to occur repeatedly. Because if you have a child, are you a parent?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, you would know we were all children once,
Yeah.
right? You would know that if your parents told you, hey, don't do this or you'll get in trouble, and you kept doing it and you never got in trouble, you'd keep doing it, right? So here you have police officers who are breaking the laws and they're being protected by other cops. So my question would be, if you have a colleague who's breaking the law and you see it and you don't call him out for it, then does that make you just as bad as him?
Hmm. Right.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah, it kind of does, right?
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
a place that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. My premise with my project is called a neighbor's choice.
Hmm.
And my background is as a Christian. My dad's a pastor, and
Amen.
so my whole framework has been trying to do one thing, and that is to introduce the ethics of Jesus Christ into the civic sphere, into politics, into society, and most importantly, our culture. And
Hmm.
that's what interested in what you're doing with your organization is. It sounds like there's a lot of common interest, and yet there's all these artificial boundaries that people place up. When I told someone I was going to be speaking with a leader of Black Lives Matter, there was, oh, why are you going to talk to them? What is that? What is going on with that? And I said, you know what? I'm done with labeling, different, having divisions based on labels. It's time to just get to the basics, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
Now, today, Black Lives Matter hasn't been responsible for one death. No
mhm,
member of Black Lives Matter has been found guilty in killing any person of any color
right,
as a result of a hate crime,
right,
right? There have been no explosions. There have been no lynchings. You see where I'm going with this,
mhm,
right? There, you don't really see hateful rhetoric. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like, what you might hear from time to time is, F the police, right?
mhm, mhm,
Now, if you look at a cop choke someone to death
mhm,
and get away with it, you look at a cop shoot somebody 20 times who has a cell phone in their hand and get away with it, and you see these acts repeatedly, in your gut, that might be your response,
right,
right?
right.
on the first 10th or 20th time. That might be
right,
your response. And that's what people fail to look at, right? They see the sentiment a lot of the times, but they don't look to see what's underneath the surface.
right,
Get to that. Get to why people are mad. People are mad because of injustice,
right.
and the courts are not fixing these acts of injustice. And politicians are not fixing these things. If you want to ask me who I blame for this whole mess, I blame the politicians.
I would also blame the churches too, because churches aren't teaching what Jesus taught.
Amen.
So the
God
reason
is
why
on.
we even have to look to politicians is because churches aren't even preaching the gospel half the time. I tell people our culture and our generation does not keep its word because the church hasn't kept the word. And if we
The
don't
word.
keep the
Like
word, no one's going to keep their word in terms of what they were told to do, which is honor your parents, love your neighbor as yourself, and
Amen.
everything that Jesus says. Ethically, it's always consistent. He said, do not resist evil with violence. And so, to me, when I look at someone sinning, when I look at a society that sends an armed man to tell a man to change his broken taillight, there's something sociopathic about that society. Why
Amen.
would you send a man with a gun drawn to tell him, hey, brother, can you change your tail light? Because, people could get into, a wreck maybe if you don't.
Yeah.
Why,
Yeah.
why have we lost our way as humans where that's the way we love our neighbor as ourselves is to draw a gun to a man and tell him your light bulb's broken?
That's
What
it.
that to me, there's something so wrong with that frame in the begin. In the people dissect that whole story and they say, well, he was trying to do what he could. He was trying to follow his orders. Why did we have that order to begin with? Why did we even put that situation on the books?
Hmm.
No matter who was in the car and who was holding the gun.
See, that's what we need to get to, right? We need to look at this system and say, why are we allowing police officers? There's a football player named Des Moore who was choked until he was unconscious by the police.
Mm,
Once the story exploded, the officer was fired, and there were consequences. But this happened months ago. It wasn't until the public outcry that this police officer was punished, and that's problematic, right? We
right,
live in a society, and this is back to God's word, right?
right.
We live in a society where people go to all costs to hide the truth.
That's right. Yeah.
There's no truth in our society, and the only truths people want to hear are the ones that make them happy.
Right. I think this is bigger. The thing that I think gets people stumbled up on is they get caught up on, the racial stuff and are you telling me I don't like black lives and all these things and there's all this fighting and all this stuff? But to me, it goes back farther than even the founding of America. This is the root of human nature's proclivity for evil, which is to scapegoat and to ritually sacrifice people who are convenient to sacrifice. That's what Jesus was battling since the dawn of time. That's what he said. I have come to reveal things which have been hidden since the foundation of the world. The
Wow.
world order. This is what the very root of the satanic system, and yet, we leave it into the domain of, which party and which, this or that, but it is the very core of what, we are wrestling against, not against flesh and blood, not against skin color, but against the principalities. That
Amen.
word Satan means accuser, and accuser is that's the spirit we're under, the accusation spirit, which means we would send a man with a gun drawn to tell a man to change his light bulb. That's an accusatory satanic spirit that the country is under when we even think that's okay, or to send men to physically restrain a man and for selling unlicensed cigarettes.
Absolutely.
Right? It doesn't
Ab-
make any sense, That to
And
me is,
what I think you're talking about is something what we often fight for, and that's de-escalation training. Where is the training that that instructs these officers to talk these people down from their position. Now, if you look at Eric Garner's story, he was talking with his hands in the air. And I talked about this case for years, and a 17-year-old made me think about it this way maybe a few months ago. He had his hands in the air and was saying something like, y'all are going to listen to me. He was just trying to express a viewpoint. However, they wouldn't even let him make their point. Our country is trained to resort to violence first. Why? Go back to what you were saying about the word. Judge not lest ye be judged. We pass judgment on each other every day. We pass judgment on people's sexualities. We pass judgment on the color of people's skins. We pass judgment on people's appearances, on their weight. We are always passing judgments, and this is problematic.
Right, exactly. And it's like, even if we could wave a magic wand and reconcile all racial issues, I was just thinking of that the other day. The final battle may be between fat people and skinny people. There's always something everybody's going to be dividing into camps about, to say, you looked at me because I'm too skinny, or you looked at me because I'm too fat, and you made that law and enforced it in a way that affected me versus that group. Humans, it's our nature to pick any excuse to pick a tribe to fight, right? And that's always going to be with us. And so I think what you are doing is so important, which is we have to, if we heal the racial thing, but we haven't healed the core, which is our addiction to violence, we haven't solved anything. I mean, we can check our privilege all day long about every kind of privilege there is, but what about the privilege of the collective's ability to put a nonviolent person in a cage to begin with? To me, the whole principle of our civilization has gone awry once we see that principle itself. There should never be the use of violence to enforce a single nonviolent victimless act.
Amen.
For me, violence is the only thing that should be restrained through law, right? So if you're stealing from somebody, you've stolen something, there should be restitution. You shouldn't be put in prison. I don't think you should be put for petty thievery.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there should be restitution. If you steal something, you pay it back, and that's the biblical principle for theft. If you assault someone, you should be put in a timeout cage. That's what we call prison, right? So you should have a timeout space if you try to assault someone. If you try to defraud, selling a little old lady beachfront property in Nebraska, that's fraud. So there should be a law. It's common sense. Rape, messing with children, those are all things everybody knows, common sense. That's violent. We're going to enshrine that as a law, which says if I, as a person, were to see that act done myself, so if I were to see a little old lady being assaulted, it would be within my Christian moral right to use self-defensive force to get that attacker off that lady and protect her so that she will not be assaulted any longer. Therefore, since I can do that individually, can then enshrine that as a collective and make that a law saying thou shalt not attack or physically assault someone. And then there's a timeout space for that, just like when I put someone on the ground and put them in a lock. That's a timeout space in that moment. We can make that What's that?
I challenge you to change your vernacular and say a healing space.
Right, sure, yeah.
But we need to heal what's wrong with that person. If a person is stealing or robbing because they're hungry, right? We need to teach that person, A, how this is wrong, and B, how it hurts people, but C, how to earn for themselves. What you're talking about are principles of restorative justice. In other countries that use, I believe New Zealand is one of them, maybe even Germany, and they adopt principles of restorative justice, and their recidivism rates are extremely low. We need to send people to jail, yes, when necessary, but we need to heal them. We really are more focused on punitive punishment than we are on restoration.
Well, for
and
me, yeah, there's two things that like principally that I want to push for, which is one, the rest, changing the way, like you said, instead of thinking prison as a place of punishment and you get what you deserved and mocking people, and making it like it's a joke that you're going to get locked up or something. We need to change the frame for how we structure prison into a healing frame. I like that, but the other thing that we have to do is to redefine what is acceptable to be called law. That's my big thing. So I think all these nonviolent behaviors, every one of them, need to be struck down by jury nullification. So that's what my big issue is because the founders set up the system. If you got a problem with the Apple product, you look at the founders manual, how they tell you how to fix it. The founders, for all their flaws and whatever, their system was designed in a way that John Adams, Thomas Jefferson said that we reserve the jury system as the means to strike down laws which are tyrannical, right?
Absolutely.
So for me, as a Christian, if we live in a society where we got 70 to 80% of people claiming to be a Christian, that means a Jesus imitator, then that means 70 to 80% of everybody that's going into the jury pool should be striking down these laws by saying not guilty if the law is using violence to solve non-violent problems.
Absolutely.
Period. I mean that for everything. That means suspended driver's license, any of it, selling an unlicensed cigarette. All those things, if we strike them down at the jury level, it creates legal precedent and they won't be able to try these trials anymore. That's how we can strike the laws down.
People aren't talking about jury nullification. This is a foreign concept, and I guarantee you if you ran a poll on your social media, most of the people will respond that they don't know what it is. Right. And that's because the government does not want you to know what jury nullification is. Right. And that's the ability for the jury to make their own decision to say, yes, this is the law, but we are deciding this way, right? So I know someone who was arrested in the Bronx, for handing out flyers on jury nullification. Okay? Yeah. Was taken into custody by court officers. This is problematic. They don't want you to know that if you think an arrest is BS or if you think a charge is BS, that you can set a person free to go. They don't want you to know that. And then you really have to look at the reasons why people want us incarcerated, why they want to keep us off the streets. You'd have to study things like the new Jim Crow, and you would find out how blacks are arrested at a rate that's highly disproportionate for whites for the same crimes. Even when they have similar criminal histories, we're sent away for longer times. We're incarcerated when other people are set free. And these are the things we talk about when we talk about when we refer to institutional racism. Right. And before, I like what you said about healing. People don't like us to talk about slavery. They don't like us to talk about racism. They don't like us to talk about the past that has a direct bearing on the present. And how do they expect to heal? How do they expect to overcome this hurdle if they won't acknowledge the pain and the suffering and the consequences of hundreds of years of racism and oppression? We have to deal with these truths. We have to deal with these truths in a real way, and that's how we grow as people.
Yeah, I agree. We have to, you got to remember your history and have an honest conversation about it.
Absolutely.
Do you think that to me, I'm trying to build alliances here. I want to build networks of people who understand and promote the concept of no victim, no crime. It's real simple to me. If someone's not, if you look in the police report and there's no victim, there is no crime. It doesn't matter if the law says it. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm telling people you should go, break the law. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you should always obey the law. As long as to your best of your ability, as long as it's not going against your conscience,
unjust law is no law at all.
Right. Amen. But for the most part, you should obey the laws. But when it comes to maintaining those laws. I don't think any Christian, when Jesus says, "Do not resist evil with violence," I don't think that there was an asterisk there that says, "Well, except if it's selling unlicensed cigarettes, then you can use violence to solve that problem," or if you're using a drug, or if you're even blue collar, white collar crimes. If there's no victim, there's a better way to solve it than to steal or put someone in a cage, right? Like I said, to me, the only place for time out is if you physically are trying to do violence or defraud someone, So that means most of the laws that we have on the book shouldn't even be there to begin with. And I think, to me, that's a way to have a unity between different groups to say, hey, look, let's unite over this universal cause, which is if there is no victim, there should be no crime. And let's use our powers as juries, and let's use our powers as voters to repeal all of these victimless crime laws. Do you think that would be a step that you guys in your organization would be supportive of?
We really have to look at them.
Yeah.
And when I say look at them, I mean go through
right.
every and see what needs to be removed. Yes, I'd like to move toward a society where there's no longer a necessity for police, right? Mm-hmm. There's no longer a necessity to have armed police officers roaming in our streets and in some places occupying them. Mm-hmm. And what I really want people to understand is when we talk about these laws that affect people of color, we're also the byproduct of a just society affects poor white people, but white people without resources, because they're treated in the same ways in their communities, right? It's there's this system here where the poor are cannibalized, right, by the system. So when we fight for our rights, everybody benefits, because when you look at Rosa Parks and what she did and that stand she took against Jim Crow in the South, and you realize how many different immigrants, how many different nationalities were able to now sit in the front street, in the front seat of the bus, then you begin to realize the impact of bringing justice to Black Americans and how it benefits this country as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. As long my thing is that if we don't understand how illegitimate these laws are to begin with, though, here's my read on this is like the way the conversation rolls out, it becomes, to me, I don't see the action step. I want a practical kind of couple solutions. I know there's a lot of practical things, but when it's all about these things like trying to get rid of systemic racism, well, how am I going to know which police officer harbors some kind of implicit bias? I mean, I know they've got tests and stuff. I mean, how are you going to weed that out? For me, I think that should be weeded out. But more importantly, if we start to reframe our whole framework about what's acceptable as law, we don't even let that occasion happen to begin with. So if we start having a reframing of what's acceptable to use force as a police system, we're still going to have police, but it should only be used when it's actual violence that has been in the process of being attempted, right?
Yes.
To me, that eliminates 99%. So, I like what Ron Paul said. Ron Paul, he said he was going to pardon all nonviolent offenders on day one. All nonviolent, they're out. You're free. No questions asked. No, not a commutation, not a reduction. You're free.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, you won't find me arguing with eliminating laws that have people incarcerated for nonviolent crimes. However, there is a need to treat those behaviors, right? So then we start talking about drug treatment courts as opposed to just criminal courts. We start talking about mental health courts, because just giving people a free pass is not necessarily addressing their issue. there are issues that need to be addressed, and I agree they need to be gone about in a different way. The use of violence should be an absolute last resource.
Mm-hmm.
You're about to say something.
Oh no, I was just thinking. And you,
Yeah.
well, I mean, what would happen if we ended the drug war completely? Let's just take that one. You know.
Hmm. I'd say legalize marijuana, right?
I say I go with legalize everything.
You libertarians are a wild bunch. Yeah, but and then you free with the legalization of marijuana. You free a lot of people. You know, a lot of people will be released from jail. And then when you start talking about the dispensaries, then you should make sure that MWBEs have equal access to these licenses.
See,
Right?
you're gonna think I'm radical about this, maybe, but I think if you have no victim, you have no right to be in a cage with violent people or people who have committed violence. You shouldn't
Yeah.
even be there. So, I want from the broken taillight person who put in jail because that was the thing that got him arrested, to the person who sold raw milk as an Amish farmer. He took milk from a cow's udder. He put it in a cup. Someone drank it, and he's in a prison cage now.
Now these laws are capitalism, right? What we're talking about is capitalists using the law, right?
Phony
Using
capitalists.
the law. That's it.
Yeah.
To harm individuals to protect their investments.
Yeah, to protect the dairy cartel. And then what do you think about, I think Wesley Snipes, he shouldn't have been in prison.
No. No, I was just texting Wesley Snipes like 2 nights ago.
There you go. See, he has every right to have that objection. In a free society, he should be able to opt out. Again, I like what Ron Paul said. He said everybody who is under a certain age, we know Social Security and Medicare and all these things are not going to be there for us when we're old. So why don't we have the ability to opt out of these schemes that aren't going to be there for us? Like, for example, everybody talks about, should the government control healthcare or should insurance companies, right? Well, the kind of pharmaceuticals that they put on tap as your cures are not real medicine. They keep you more sick. They keep you more harmed. So when I look at people like Bernie Sanders, they say, oh, we're going to give government healthcare. I say, what kind of healthcare? Are you going to give me the natural stuff that actually deals with my illnesses, or the things that the FDA doesn't even allow on the market? Or are you going to give me the sick care that doesn't actually eliminate, the problem, cancer or whatever the illness is? So you see what I mean? I'm rethinking. I'm going to the higher plane, which is, why are we giving so many? Why are we giving the government the power of violence over people who have no victim? That means the person who wants to sell something that FDA doesn't approve. That means the person who wants to sell cigarettes and doesn't give a damn about cigarette licenses. Or the person who wants to cut hair but doesn't want to get a license to cut hair because it's too cost prohibitive. Or about the person who wants to sell fresh milk because they know that if you pasteurize the milk, you denature the protein and you make the milk a lot less healthy for the person who needs that product. How about the person, if so, look at Wesley Snipes. There you go. That's a perfect example. So for me, I don't care if you're from the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich. If you have no victim, you should not ever be treated in a violent or forceful manner. You should never see a cop car coming to you because there is no law on the books to enforce.
I understand that. Now, how would you go about determining which laws that you would take from the books and which ones you would keep?
If there is no victim in the report, can you name a victim? See, I have a friend, his name is John Basie. He's a former NYPD detective during the 80s crack epidemic. And he always said, you always knew you had a victimless crime when you went to fill out the police report. And for the place where it said victim, you wrote in, people of the state of New York.
Yeah.
So that's what you write in when it's someone like Wesley Snipes. You write in the federal government. Oh, you don't have a victim. You can't provide a body. You can't provide a single human soul who says you have injured me.
Yeah.
I mean, the Pentagon has $21 trillion missing. They can't even account for it. Wesley Snipes did not injure the federal government.
Wait. What happened after that news came out about the Pentagon missing
Oh,
that
we're
plane?
not allowed to talk about that. Don't even. Are you going there?
Wait, something else happened that week, and it was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, yeah. You're not allowed to talk about that. Now you're gonna
okay,
get us in trouble.
okay.
Okay.
Oh, I'm paying attention, brother. I absolutely paying attention.
But see, to me, look, man, that's where I'm getting at. Is like, okay, let me ask you a question. I want you to think about this.
Hmm.
If you had a company and you were in the hiring process and you're looking to hire a sales manager, and in the interview process, that sales manager says, you know what I do when your customers don't pay on time? I visit them and I threaten them that if they don't pay, I'm going to tase them, and if they resist, I might break their legs.
Hmm.
And you, as the owner of that company, you say, you know what? Sounds good. I'm going to hire you. Right? So you hire that person, and then a few weeks later, you get a call from one of your sales accounts, and they say, what is going on here? This guy, he says he represents you. He's been beating me up. He's tasing me. He's hurting me. And you say, I didn't have nothing to do with it. I have no moral responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? That's exactly what we do every time we vote for a politician that keeps these violent laws on the books.
Amen. Amen.
When we hire anybody and they have a law on the book and they could have removed it within their power and they did not, if you refuse to remove evil when you have the opportunity to, as a politician, you're guilty of keeping that violence on the books.
And that's, I think that's a great place for us to end because I have to get to a meeting, right? But the fact of the matter is, police kill people, right? Racism exists. There's violence across America. And there are people those who are affected, good folks of all colors, who we vote for and put in power, that are allowing these things to happen. And it's a shame before God. It's a shame before God. That's why I'm calling on all people to put down those ideals that they have, those preconceived notions, and put down their politics and just start doing what's right. That's what we need. We need to revitalize. We need to restore. America needs a rejuvenation.
That's right. You remember that old campaign, Just Say No?
Yeah.
I say it's just say no to every single politician who keeps these victimless crime laws on the books. I say fire every single one of them. And if you're in a jury duty, you just say no and let that person go free, so that we can set a precedent to strike these laws down. That's how they started to stop the Fugitive Slave Law Act. The Fugitive Slave Law was struck down by juries that said that's immoral.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to enforce that anymore, because they were convicted because they were Christians. So I'm asking people, and that's what I like about what you're doing, is don't check your Christian conscience at the door in the voting booth or the jury box. Jesus still commands you, do not resist evil with violence. Whether you're in a jury box or your bedroom or your house, whatever, it does not change if there's a group of people. And that's what I want to communicate to people. So I appreciate what you're doing with your organization. I hope that we can talk again and kind of expand some of these thoughts further and develop this. My work, like I said, goes out to, conservative and libertarian websites. And they're new to this idea too, but they're open. They're putting stuff out where I'm talking about ending all victimless crimes and setting all, millions of nonviolent people out of the prison tomorrow. They're pushing this on to top sites of conservative news sites. So there's something going on in the atmosphere that we, I think, need to keep developing across all these different groups and organizations, and let's transcend this whole left versus right, Democrat, Republican thing, and get some stuff done. Because right now, to me, every day I know that there's a person who has no victim under the police report that's sitting in a cage, to me, that's an injustice.
That's
We
it.
have no business policing the world, trying to change their tyrannical laws, as long as that's right down the road for me in my town.
That's it. Absolutely. Absolutely, my
But tell
brother.
us where we can keep in touch with your
Oh,
website.
at Hawk of New York on Twitter,
Okay.
Hawk.Newsome on Instagram, and Black Lives Matter Greater NY.com. Black Lives Matter Greater NY.com.
Hawk Newsome, it's been a pleasure, and I hope to see more great speeches from you. You're doing a great work. Thank you.
Bless you, brother.
Thanks.